So
Honest,
the meaning of life, is that what you're thinking? Or just
kind of,
what is life?
sure, all of
Life
it.
in general.
Yeah,
What
consciousness.
is this life that we're experiencing?
Well, I think it's a balance between external stimuli and our conscious thoughts, and the I guess the shallow ground that is really misunderstood is how that's interpreted. Is how if everyone's consciousness is either linked together and we're sharing the same experiences just from a different viewpoint of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
or is it all intrinsically inside our own conscious and we're projecting our own version of life in itself. So whether we're all in it together or is it just a one-sided
Right.
mystery, and that's kind of the unique thing that can't really be tested, that's widely discussed.
Right. The whole multifaceted thing with consciousness, I think. I mean, obviously, science hasn't even begun to touch on that yet. With all the everything that we've been going through with neuroscience and stuff, it seems like that's a fairly new discipline. I mean, within the past 150 years, we've just been studying neuroscience. When you think about, philosophy in general, studying consciousness just from a philosophical standpoint has been around for thousands of years. But actual sciences, studying stuff without any sort of bias, any sort of preconditions or anything, has only been around for 150 years at most, when it comes to the study of the brain and stuff. So I think that when we talk about life, I think, especially consciousness, does consciousness extend beyond humanity? Is it something more than us as, I mean, what I see us as just a sort of mammalian primate,
Right.
and nothing more than that. I mean, what makes us so special is to have a consciousness. Obviously, you can see other animals reacting to, like you said, physical stimuli, external stimuli, and whatnot. But is there some sort of at least a rudimentary consciousness that could be related to our own that's just not quite as advanced as ours? And if that's the case, do these other creatures have the same sort of privileges that we would in the afterlife? Would they have an afterlife? And if not, why not? I guess would be the thing that I would most like to investigate with consciousness. Just because so many people, I think, believe that they're going to see their pets in heaven. As far as an afterlife is concerned, if the consciousness does survive death, would it survive death with other creatures, other species, other animals as well? And again, that's assuming that we are nothing more than an animal ourselves.
Oh, it's interesting you bring it up because if it you can find religious believers that believe that heaven is only relegated towards the human population
Right.
and our species, but then why do we bury our pets? And the same people who believe that still carry on the same rituals that they would for a loved one.
Right.
And it's there's not even, they can't even get a consensus among themselves of what the answer is, because many will, there will be few that say that pets will go to heaven, some won't. Does every ant or bug that you crush, walking to your car, and do they go to heaven? So
Right.
or do they transcend this materialistic world?
Or is there an animal heaven, an animal afterlife?
Correct. Different dimensions of
Right,
where
right,
we
right.
all go. I don't know, and I hope that science starts to begin to bridge that gap. And I don't know if it ever can be solved with what we know, with the final answer, because there's obviously no coming back from it. And that's kind of the
Right. And I think that that's a testament that that religion claims to make a when they claim to make a point about the afterlife, especially Christianity, you read the Bible, and it says that animals were put on this earth for a reason, whether it be for man to hunt and eat, or for man to do this, or for man to do that. Everything is pretty much intended with a purpose tied back to man, because man was created pretty much as the center of the universe, pretty much as God's primary creature of his most he's just infatuated with us for whatever reason. He just seems he's like I'm gonna create humanity in my own image. So we are in his own image for one. So we have to assume if we're assuming the Bible to be truth, that we are the most important species to be walking this planet, and that everything else falls under us. The Bible makes no reference to animals in an afterlife. Any other type of what we consider to be a living creature underneath us, to have any sort of an afterlife or any sort of consciousness that's at least comparable to our own. And with that being said, I mean, I guess that kind of separates the believers from the non-believers in the aspect that, okay, the believers really have to take, they have to, we have to put them in a position to make a definitive claim. Do you believe that animals have an afterlife? Your pets, for instance, have an afterlife. That you will see them in heaven. Or maybe the animals aren't experiencing an afterlife in and of themselves, but what you're seeing in an afterlife is some sort of a memory or some sort of, an entity that's not your actual pet, but it's there to kind of give you solace or just comfort or whatever. But I think that non-believers really have to put pressure on believers to make a definitive stance on that, because the Bible really doesn't say one way or the other beyond humanity, again, which is what the Bible and God are so infatuated with. Humanity and everything that we're supposed to do, from our morality to what we do to be in God's good favor. But, what about all the other animals in the world? I mean, you have to assume that they experience some sort of an emotion, or at least fear and happiness in some aspect or another. My cat purrs when I pet her, and she understands that that's a good feeling. But if I scare her, she runs and she hides, and she understands that that's fear. There's some, even if it's just innate in her, even if it's just some, intrinsic, stimuli that she can't necessarily control. She's feeling that as a conscious, what I would consider to be a conscious creature. And here she is wanting affection right now, and depending on my reaction to her at this point, she will react in some way that I would say is very comparable to our own reactions to this universe. I mean, and hers would be much more limited than ours, but I wouldn't downplay it because of that. I wouldn't say that it's less valued, at least by nature, if not a god.
Oh, absolutely. And it's been documented, too, in nature, where other species, such as elephants, for example, believe it or not, they have extremely good memories of even loved ones in their, what you would call their pack of, fellow elephants. But if one should die or fall sick, they'll actually stand by it and protect it and ward it off from other predators. And
right.
It's actually been known that the elephants will actually migrate back to where the bones were lying of their dead relatives or infants, and they'll visit the graves of these animals years later. They'll be still coming back to the same point. So I have a hard time believing that if that's true, they don't share, that we wouldn't share the same. Obviously, we share the same end result in death. And if we're sharing that commonality of the end of the road, that we wouldn't be sharing other commonalities of consciousness and feeling. And there are some out there that say they don't feel like we do, and I think that the evidence is overwhelmingly against that, and that animals of all types do feel certain pains to different magnitudes. I would argue, and I'm sure there's more knowledgeable people on the subject, but insects feel a different threshold of pain than, say, our common mammal ancestors, or fish, for example. They have different chemical makeups, they have different structures, they have different nervous systems that I would feel that they would obviously have a varying degree of pain and what their perception of reality is. Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, I think it's entirely plausible that we all, whatever happens afterwards, we're in it together.